government programs that are supposed to help poor people are actually incredibly harmful to poor people. And you can take the whole gamut of programs. Every single one of the programs that is geared towards supposedly helping is actually damaging. And I'll just give you a few examples. Minimum wage. Minimum wage laws are supposed to help the people who make very little money. So instead of making $5 an hour, now they make $7 an hour. But they're devastating towards young, poor kids who who are not going to find jobs at $7 an hour. They can only produce at $5 an hour. Nobody's going to give them a job at $7 an hour. Nobody's going to lose money on you as an employee. So what happens when you raise the minimum wage, what happens is you create unemployment among the people who at least can afford to be unemployed. The poorest, the people who have the least amount of experience, that know the least about business. What happens typically is that people enter that first job and they very quickly rise up in pay. Today, the people who would enter at $5 an hour, $6 an hour, never get a job, and therefore they're permanently unemployed, and they suffer the most from minimum wage laws. Welfare. So welfare pays checks to people who are poor. You're below a certain income level, you get a check from the government. What does that do? Well, it encourages you not trying to find a job. It encourages you to become dependent on the government. And what does it do to you when you're getting checks instead of actually working for a living? It destroys your ability to have self-esteem. It destroys your happiness. So happiness and self-esteem come from knowing that you can take care of yourself. When you're dependent constantly and are told that you, in a sense, always will be dependent, and you're getting food stamps, you're getting checks from the government, you're dependent on other people, you're a moocher, right? And you know you're a moocher. You know you're a moocher. You know you're not taking care of yourself. You know you're dependent on other people. You can never gain that self-esteem that is required to be happy. And this is, so this is a huge effect that government policy has on poor people. It destroys their lives. It destroys their capacity to rise up, and it destroys their capacity to have self-esteem. You could go on and on, but just another. Statism, generally, regulations, controls, reduce the amount of economic activity. They reduce the number of jobs. They reduce the amount of economic growth. Who suffers? People who are trying to get a job. So in capitalism, in laissez-faire capitalism, there's no such thing as prolonged unemployment. There might be dips in which you might lose your job for a while. But there should never be a situation in which you're for a long time unemployed, because capitalism produces more jobs than there are people. Every example in history suggests that when you leave markets alone, they produce more jobs than there are people. Statism, government policies are what create this unemployment. And who suffers most from this unemployment? It's unskilled labor. It's generally poor people. They're the victims. They're the ones who suffer from this. Now, again, they're not the only victims. Everybody's a victim. Everybody who wants to have a good life, everybody who wants to have a job, everybody who's ambitious is a victim of statism. That's true of poor, middle class, and rich. But all these policies, statism broadly, it victimizes ambitious poor people. Indeed, Ayn Rand said that the biggest victims of statism are the ambitious poor.